UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Are they extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers in origin, or are they simply a result of top-secret military projects, false flag alien invasions, PSYOP, drones, or other human-made aircraft? Join the discussion now on UAP Crossfire.
Well, good evening to the greatest audience on the planet, UAP Crossfire. The whole gang is here tonight, excited. I'm highlighting a picture of the latest UAP that is rumored to be out there. That is the big squab this week was Pratt & Whitney, who's supposed to be building the engines for the F-47, the next sixth generation fighter that we know about. They put this out in a video, and it started quite a stir that it had been out there. And you can see that it does not have rudders. It has vector thrust. It will have this new engine. And I am sure that it will be inspiring a few calls in the future for something that is not of this earth flying through our skies. With that said, and it's kind of an underwriting theme, I always like to start out the show. Although now that we're recording, I could probably remember to say this at the end, and maybe I will, but God's peace that surpasses all knowledge and understanding, especially with the subjects we're going to be tackling tonight and when we tackle here week to week. That's an important prayer that I throw out. So, going around the horn, Chris DePerno up in upstate New York. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing great. You know, we didn't get the snowstorm. We only got about an inch and a half of snow.
Yeah, we did.
Got a little cold. No, we didn't get it.
Yeah, no, we did here in Maine.
Oh, you did.
In Maine.
Oh, well, I feel sorry for you.
Well, feel even more sorry for people in Rhode Island and Cape Cod, which got close to 3 feet of snow.
The only people I'm not sorry for is the New York City people. Let them shovel it. Get it.
Yeah. It's tough if you don't have your proper ID and your proper size shovel to. You guys got some really interesting things there. Yeah. I would think you would suspend some of those rules in a snow emergency, but silly me.
Hey, silly you. You would think that common sense was thrown out the window, but what can I say?
Well, let's go to the Padre, who's out in the balmy South Dakota territories.
Yeah, been way above normal this winter. Hardly any snow. We really need snow. We've got some wildfire problems already. But things here, we're holding down the fort, looking good. Hearing those rumblings of engines over at Ellsworth Air Force Base still tells me something's up soon. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
I noted that the Secretary of War made a remark, because we have talked about this in the past, that they track, and there's actually an app to track pizza orders around the Pentagon when the staffers stay late. And someone brought that attention to me, and I look at it at the time, and I said, well, if I was anybody around there, and then I knew that was out there, I would just start ordering pizzas. I mean, I would throw that off all the time. And he came out and actually said it this week, that he's going to start randomly ordering large amounts of pizza just so everybody can run around. And again, might have some play in our discussion tonight, where the government might actually use some of these things that are being talked about in the new media against itself. And talking about against itself and being the guiding light, Don Decker, my man, how are things in California? Please tell me the temperature out in California.
Well, I don't want you to feel bad, Deuce, but we hit 80 today.
Yeah, 80. There you go. Nice.
80 degrees. But I'll tell you, the last couple of days have been anxious. I got a call from our brother Chris DePerno the day before yesterday. I was totally unaware of the developments and things happening just south of me, below the border, in Mexico.
Go away.
And boy, I'll tell you what, at first, I hit all the news stations and news channels. I could barely find anything out about it.
Right.
And I was thinking, my God, do they have an embargo on that? But then eventually stories started to creep out. Today, I spoke with someone who's originally from Mexico, and she told me that what was that guy's name? El Menche?
El Mencho.
Mencho, yeah, got scragged just about a mile and a half from where she emigrated from. And things are pretty dicey. Now, lest I say anything horrible, but my Lord, they could be on the cusp of a civil war down there. They had quite a few federal troops and National Guardsmen that have been killed. So things are pretty spooky. Then I remembered a little of my history. In the late beginning of the second decade of the 20th century, around 1911, 1912, Mexico was having some problems with people running a rebellion. And then just 3 or 4 years later, one of those gangs, a fellow by the name of Pancho Villa, and about 350 of his close compadres invaded North America in Arizona and New Mexico, shot the place up. And Woodrow Wilson, that socialist icon from many years ago, ordered General Blackjack Pershing to take the American army down into Mexico and take care of business. Now, am I suggesting something like that might happen today? Well, I don't know, but I will say this. There are a lot currently of American tourists down there. And if anything happens to any of them, kidnapped, shot, killed, God knows what, I got a feeling our current commander-in-chief would not take well to that. So there's that to think about. But other than that, I'm doing just great, Deuce.
I think the interesting part is how much the information is embargoed. That's an interesting point you bring up. I can see live videos from Ukraine. I can see live videos from Iran, and Iran is under one of the tightest lids that you could possibly have. Yet, very little information, very little self-reporting by people from other countries getting on their phones and putting information out. It's just a very interesting thing, and it's probably going to play into the overall topics that we're talking about tonight. So, for our great audience, I want to thank everyone who continues to write emails, leaves comments on the web pages. Appreciate everyone that's subscribing. We're slowly building our presence up, and I guess that's all important portion of what we do on those places. Our very talented producer Amanda is working diligently to get Rumble and other good things online and on station. So that's good stuff. But we are really coming to the point where we want to close out in this 3-part series, and it went 2 parts longer than I think we ever planned to go with it. We started out with the discussion about the movie Disclosure. And I'm just going to put it around everybody. I'm going to ask for a shotgun kind of reply, and then I'm going to come back to you. And I'll start with Don. Shotgun reply, Don. Shotgun. But
before we begin, just a clarification. We're not talking about the movie upcoming with Spielberg,
Negative.
Disclosure Day. We are talking about the documentary Day of Disclosure that came out.
Yeah, when you say documentary, I'd like you to air quote documentary, since I think some of the rules of documentary, as I know it, were not exercised. And I believe I entitled the proper movie, Disclosure. Not Disclosure Day, but I'm glad you brought up Disclosure Day. The movie Disclosure, which we have been talking about for the last 2 episodes of the show since we returned to the airways. So, with that said, shotgun, Don. Shotgun.
Okay, I've been in this field since the late 1980s, primarily with UFO Magazine. And in that time, we broke the magazine and myself broke a number of stories that should have been, in my humble opinion, blockbusters. Things that showed anomalous things not here on Earth, but in space. And two of those stories primarily are Phobos 2, a Soviet, because at that time there was still a Soviet Union.
Don, I'm going to take your range privilege. I want you to talk about disclosure.
I'm getting to that.
I'll come back to you.
I'm getting to that. And the STS-48 thing. Now,
Right.
Why do I mention that? We called the Pentagon. We called NASA. We called other government agencies about these stories, and we got laughed off the telephone. In one instance, I talked to President George H.W. Bush's press secretary, Marlon Fitzwater, and he laughed me off the phone. I was convinced never in my lifetime would the government ever acknowledge any of this, but I got blindsided. It started in 2017. Now, this documentary, that came out, I was both astounded by elements of it, and I was greatly disappointed by elements of it. But seeing people like the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, talking about this, people like Christopher Mellon, who was an Undersecretary of State for intelligence, military intelligence, I was astounded. My hopes slightly rose, but then I remembered something, that, and I'm as convinced of this as God made green apples. There is something, a core secret that has been jealously guarded for going on 80 years now, surrounded by an SAP. When the president came out with his announcement a few days ago, once again, I got excited, but then I instinctively knew the powers that be will never allow him to go forward with this. So, I guess in many regards, Deuce, I would have to say that documentary is a great big tease. A lot of people got excited, but I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed.
Chris.
Well, I first
Same rules, Chris.
Same rules.
Same rules.
At first, I thought it was the Lou Elizondo show, and then I kind of saw some of the other people in it, and I had to actually see it twice. And the only person that I thought was why they have him there was James Clapper. I wasn't, I go, yeah, okay, you have this guy here. But other than that, Mellon did a great job. I thought Marco Rubio did a great job, even though he walked it back some afterwards. But then you had Carl Neal, who, has basically come out a lot of times and said, hey, they're real, they're here. And you also had, other people in that film that, made, I thought the film made sense. For the first time, I thought, you know what? There's a chink in the armor that this might come through.
Okay. So you're positive. Decker's probably not so positive in the tease category. Let's go to our Padre.
Well, it was well produced. A lot of nice camera work, a lot of nice lighting, a lot of familiar faces, some new ones, a lot of very prominent faces. But out here in America's West, we have a saying that refers to the person who shows up from the big city out at the ranch, nicely attired, much like Jeff Goldblum in Buckaroo Banzai. And the saying is, all hat, no cowboy. Nothing really there that we didn't already know or suspect.
So I am in the probably more negative category. I agree. Decent production values, nicely presented. I was looking for a tell, something in there. Like Decker said, seems to be a bit of a tease. It seems to have just gone to areas that have been, nothing was really broke. There was, and I guess there was no presentation like a law case or a courtroom trial where evidence was being laid in front of you and you would rebut it yourself in your mind going through this. So it had more of what I call the issue that plagues us now, the 15-minute or 15-second video shot on TikTok, and it was a long series of those. I didn't have high hopes for it. I think I'm in Don's category there, that I just didn't think those things were going to happen. So I'm definitely on negative on it. Also, I haven't seen anything come out since then. I haven't seen the follow-ups. I haven't seen the people that were in there. There wasn't other in-depth interviews. It just seems to me that you're throwing up something to get my attention and to maybe cash in. And I'm not saying that these folks did it to make money. That's not my, but you're trying to grab whatever clicks or views that you can get amongst the backdrop of what went on with Congress and went on with it. It's interesting what's going to happen when Disclosure Day comes out. You brought that up earlier, Dan, when we have that movie come out, because that's going to be now a cinematic presentation. Different rules, different approach to how those things are going to be put in there and what's going to be said. And Spielberg knows how to tell a story. There's no doubt about it, that he is going to put that together. And some of his greatest films are, on this subject. So will be interesting to see what that lines up to it. So would you advise, let me take this around, I'll start back with you again, Decker. Would you advise that anyone who's serious in this research needs to see the movie?
I would recommend they see it. Yes. There's a lot in there that basically, from the quality of the people that were interviewed for that production, and I'm talking primarily people like the legislators that they had in there, Marco Rubio, Christopher Mellon, these guys. And when I tell you that 40 years ago, 35 years ago, this could not have happened, period. Nobody in that rarefied stratosphere would have gone forward with anything positive to say about the UFO topic. It would have been professional suicide. And I personally witnessed people commit professional suicide because they talked about UFOs. It just would have never happened. This in itself, and I got to say this, it's going to sound like I'm using a lot of hyperbole, but this in itself was a sea change. But yes, especially if you're not that versed in the topic, or you haven't researched or studied it for any length of time, I definitely would suggest you see this.
You bring a couple of really great points I'm going to come back to. Chris?
I absolutely think that people should see it. What I liked about it, and I think, as I said before, I think this is something that they played on after this came out, because you had people from the House of Congress, the Senate, you had military people, high-ranking military people, you had admirals, colonels, people in intelligence field, Chris Mellon, you had, and all these other people talking about this, Secretary of State. Now, and from what I understand, that these people that are still in the government, they have to get some sort of permission, for instance, like Rubio from the White House and stuff. Hey, I want to talk about UFPs. And the reason why they're talking about it, and then Obama says,
"Oh no! You're getting off the track. Stay on this track. No. Stay on this track. I asked you if this movie's important to see. I like where you're going, but no, I'm pulling you back onto the track."
Okay. Well, as far as the movie, I like the movie. I like how put off what he said, Eric Davis, what he said in the movie. I thought Lou Alessandro at first was a little too long, okay, because I've heard enough of Lou Elizondo. I want to hear from the scientists. I want to hear the people from the Senate, Gillibrand. I want to hear from guys like Tim Burchett, especially when Tim Burchett talks about how the intelligence community shut him down. And that's important because here's a guy that's got, he's got nothing vested into this, and he tries to put this out in this movie. And he's claimed that they're going to try to primary him, throw him out of Congress because of what he's been doing with this movie and everything else. So yes, I like that. I think people should see it, and I also think the movie was something that you're going to see the government piggyback on with what's being said.
Okay, Dan.
Yes, anyone who is in this field or interested in the topic should see it with the knowledge that it may just be a big psyop. We'll probably touch on that later in this broadcast. But go in there and just keep asking the question that I was asking while I was watching it. Why now? As Don said, 80 years of cover-up. Why lift the veil now? What's different? What's changed? And I think that we know that just from history, government officials have not always been straightforward with us on this.
I'm gasping.
Even days after this was released, Marco Rubio was walking back some of the comments that he made in his interview. But since then, some other government officials have said some interesting things, but I'm sure we'll get to that in a moment. So watch it, but understand and ask your question, am I being manipulated and why now?
So, Don, I'm going to jump back to you. We all agree that you should see this movie. But if you haven't read the book, and I'm putting the book in quotes, what should people be looking at besides this program to help interpret some of the stuff that goes there? Because to me, and Padre, I think you know where I'm going to go with this. There's lots of interesting treatises out there on biblical stories, scripture. Every religion has, people that do interpretations, they put books up. But if you don't know the original source, or if you don't know the original stories, if you get someone's interpretation, you're not getting the full ability to make that determination on your own. So, Don, what I'm asking is, I'd love if all UFO magazine was archived online, and God knows I've only asked for that every year for Christmas for the last 9 years of my life. Someday it will happen. But where should people go? What would you recommend as a good companion to something like this movie and what we think we're at the forefront of?
I'll tell you what, Commander, that's a loaded question in many, many ways.
Well, I only ask one loaded question a show.
Okay. I've been so deep, and I'm not whining about this. I'm just stating it for the record.
You're giving a situation position report.
I've been so deep down that rabbit hole for so long. Sometimes I've got to grab my head to keep it from swimming, okay? And I'm only going to mention this in passing. We're going to be talking about that other film documentary, Mirage Men.
Correct.
But all of those guys that were in that documentary, I knew all of them. I rubbed elbows with all of those guys. Okay, I broke bread with many of them. And having said that, that's the kind of thing that you simply can't get from reading a book. So when I said I've been down the rabbit hole, that's just one example. Now, as far as material that people can find either by going to Amazon Books Barnes and Noble, if they're still open, stuff like that. Okay, Clear Intent, the original title of the book by Larry Fawcett, Barry Greenwood, all taken from official military and intelligence files, primarily concerned with UFOs making incursions into nuclear areas, weapons storage, missile silos, atomic reactors, those types of things. That in itself is a scary thing. Now, something else, I'm just going to mention this, not to scare or terrify anybody, but in the very late 80s, very early 90s, when I entered the field primarily because as a criminal investigator, I had investigated 2 cattle mutilations at the beginning of the 1980s. Then I was exposed to something that initially it threw me through a loop, and that was a purported human mutilation. I started doing that research, and I went almost 4 years into it. Some very weird things, some very strange things, and I got to tell you, there were nights when I had nightmares about that. Ultimately, I never broke through anything, okay? I knew the phenomenon, thank God, it was rare, at least the cases that I came by, very rare, but it was also very real. Now, there are elements of this subject that, I don't know, there are elements that you just can't get by sitting in your office or your parents' basement on your laptop computer surfing the net. You're just not going to get it, okay? And the other danger of that is you're going to find a lot of crap, disinformation, bullshit. There are people that will put stuff out there just to see how many people they can hook with it. So this is a very, very dicey field. And as a result, I've had people ask me if I would mentor them. And no, I couldn't do it. It's not that I was jealously guarding my experiences, but I knew what a rabbit hole this was. So, you know, I would be hard pressed to give you more than a few titles. Richard Hall was one, and I forget now what Dick's book was. It came out in very late 80s, very early 90s. Richard Hall had been Donald Kehoe's administrative assistant at NICAP in the 50s. Dick had been around, Air Force vet, had been around forever. Unfortunately, Richard is gone now. But he wrote a book that I would highly recommend. And I'm kind of ashamed to say I don't remember what the title is. One of you guys could probably find it online real quick. But, you know, other than that, there have been a lot of books that have been written that I find questionable. But there is one series of books that are about 4 or 5 books that you can get right now today, and they're not that expensive, on Amazon. And the author's name is Gary Beckham, Bekkum. Beckham wrote a series of books. It's primarily geared toward intelligence matters, manipulations, disinformation, and a lot of the common names and folks that you've heard bandied about in UFO chats and stuff on the net are in there. People like Christopher Green, people like Hal Puthoff, people like Russell Targ. All these guys were involved with intelligence, CIA, other military, DIA, other military intelligence agencies, and they've all been like stuck to flypaper with this topic. Okay. The Beckham books, I would, if you want to get a flavor for what CIA, NSA, DIA, the kind of games that they played with this field, get those books and devour them. Now, one last thing before I pass the torch on. When I first came on board at UFO Magazine, 1988, then the publisher, later to become my wife, Vicki, told me something that never left my mind. She said right up front, look, I want you to know something. Military and intelligence have got their footprints and thumbprints all over this topic, and they play games. I think they try a lot of their games and programs on the UFO field first before they take it into the real world. And didn't take me long to see how correct she was. They've always been diddling with UFOs, and we're going to find out more later on in this show about it when we discuss Mirage Men.
Chris?
Well, you know, as far as books go, I rather read papers that these people have written.
Sure.
And I like to concentrate on that. I like to read Hal Puthoff stuff. People, you know, they know Hal Puthoff, but they haven't read some of the scientific papers he's written. And it's astonishing, some of the stuff that he's worked on. People know that he's worked on remote viewing and with Uri Geller and stuff like that. But he's also worked on time and space. He's worked on teleportation type of stuff. He's worked on the chemistry stuff. And he's put out papers that are just, you got to find them, but when you find them, they're fascinating. And of course, Eric Davis is another one that I think you have to watch. I think as far as scientists go, Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis are the two top ones, you know, as far as reading their papers. I think both of those guys have just about all the information on what's going on in ufology. That's the one. Now, as far as military people, I'd like to read what Tim Gonaltz has to say. He's a one-star admiral. I think he's one-star admiral. And he's expert in meteorology, and he's worked with underwater stuff for the U.S. Navy. And he puts out amazing stuff that I think people should listen to. And, of course, in Congress, I like Tim Burchett. I've mentioned him before, but I'd like to listen to what Tim Burchett has to say, because I think he rips away the Band-Aid and really tells you, hey, listen, this is what's going on, and this is what's stopping us. This is the war that's between the Pentagon and us and the intelligence agencies. And he puts it out there. And the same thing with Anna Paulina Luna, another congresswoman who kind of startled everybody because she never mentioned the word extraterrestrial. She always says interdimensional. And that's kind of a little off the beaten path
Sure
of
is.
what everybody else is saying. So I love to read, you know, what I can about hers. But one thing she said, and I struck this, she goes, what I saw in the skiff, what I was briefed about in the skiff that I can't tell you, was truly remarkable. And that's, I mean, that's a teaser, but it's also a fact that, you know, we have to accept that these people have knowledge that we will not get until the president disclassifies it. But as far as books and papers, I love the scientific paper. I like the stuff that Ryan Gray puts out. I love the stuff that Carl Neal puts out. Now, like here, Carl Neal is very not known, but he was Grush's boss, and he confirmed everything that Grush was saying, including people getting killed. So now you got this guy, Coronel, that was a U.S. Army colonel. He was right in there, and he writes his stuff and he talks about it. And so you got to take that, as pretty good evidence. See, the thing is with all these papers and where we're going with this, we've already covered the outer layer. I think there's people who will say, yeah, I believe there's got to be life on other planets. I've got to believe that they visited here. I got to believe they're probably walking among us. The question is, when, why, is there, and what's going on? Is it good? Is it bad? Why are they here? What do they want? And those questions have never been really answered, and nobody wants to get near those.
So let me pose the question why those can't get answered, Chris. Why have you kept it from us for 80 years?
Because I think what Don was saying before is I think there's something that we are going to have a hard time digesting. Because remember, Lou Elizondo said, we can't give this to you all at once. We got to give it to you in pieces. You got to be able to digest.
Except that Lou knows everything. See,
Who the hell made him the arbiter?
And what I love the hubris of that kind of a statement. I'm coming to you, Padre, but I had to jump in on this because these self-appointed betters, you can't handle the truth. Okay? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
I'm not a Lou Elizondo fan, but
no, I know you're not. But what I'm saying is this is a repeated thing over and over.
Right.
The good Congress people that you mentioned. I can't tell you what I saw in the skiff. You're not supposed to say anything that you saw in the skiff. You're not even supposed to give an opinion of what you saw in the skiff. That's normally what you sign when you go into the skiff. You can't talk about anything that happened. You're not even supposed to acknowledge you went into the freaking skiff. Okay, so now we're playing for political pandering. We're playing for popularity. We're playing for hits. And the whole part of it comes down to you're telling me that if you walked into the skiff and you're telling me about this and it was something really, really bad, you wouldn't tell us because we couldn't handle the really, really bad. Or you're not going to give me the rest of the happy ending here where we have a plan how to handle this. Trust us. May or may not trust you, believe you. But
you brought up a good point, though, Commander. Do they have a plan? Because I don't think they do. I think that
then this is even more reckless and more damaging and more dangerous if they don't even have the pretense of a plan. Okay?
I don't think they do.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. Dan, I didn't mean to take away from you. Padre, please. What would you suggest?
Well, I believe the original question was recommended books for those.
Well, recommended. How you go to disclosure, but what do you need around the movie disclosure? And for that matter, many of the things that we've talked about in the past for movies. What other education? I threw books in there as just the most comfortable noun to throw into the subject. But what else out there do you look at, with the exception of this program? Because I am going to ruthlessly pander this show, folks. I'm not going to put on the pretense of being someone as a member of Congress saying, oh, I really like those UAP Crossfire. I can't tell you why I like them, and I can't tell you where they get their information, but I really like UAP Crossfire guy. And that guy, Decker, I've got my eye on him.
Well, they've had their eye on me for quite a while.
Well, I'm glad you picked up on where that little montage was going, but go ahead. Dan, please.
Okay, that narrows it down for me a little bit because I happen to look on my Audible account and it says that I have listened to 51 books in the last 12 months, and a number of them have been on this subject. But as far as essential reading, what we're finding in survey after survey of the population right now is that people are desperately looking for something to hang on to because all of the institutions that they've believed in have disappointed them. Disclosure is probably going to shake, sorry, I didn't realize I was that hungry. Disclosure, I think, is probably going to even exacerbate that because so many people will say, but you told us this, and now you're telling us this. And there's just this incredible snowball of distrust rolling down the hill of humanity right now to try and make it so that we don't know who to believe and why. And as a pastor, I certainly believe it's important for people to have a knowledge of the Bible and the connections that it draws to so many of these subjects. Who can you trust and why? Who shouldn't you trust and why? What has taken place in humanity's history that ties into this? And in that regard, I've been reading more and more books about ancient history, including the one that you gave me, Commander Cobra, Forbidden History. And one can't help but even get more angry that what's being taught about man's origin, his purpose, his design, has been withheld for us. And it all comes back to this question, why? Is it that we can't handle the truth? And again, the arrogance that such a statement like that puts forth, who's to tell me what I can or cannot handle? But at the same time, unprecedented amounts of research are being done by institutions and governments as to how to manipulate the human psyche, how to make us think a certain way, how to make us buy certain products, how to make us believe or disbelieve certain things. And in that confusion, faith offers an anchor. So I'd recommend anything that builds your faith in God, that solidifies what you know to be true inside. And in terms of strictly UAP and related, so some of the books that I've read recently, we talked about before, Birthright by Timothy Alberino, Rungs of Disclosure by L.A. Marzulli. Just finished The Unseen Realm by Michael Heiser. He's passed away recently, but he was heavily into tying together all of the ancients and so forth. And I'm in the middle of one right now that it's a slog, but it's got so much information in it. I mean, the audiobook is 34 hours, and that is The Genesis 6 Conspiracy by Gary Wayne. And book one in the series is 34 hours, but it is a deep dive that and you would love it, Mr. Decker, because it's got the Anunnaki, it's got the Sumerians, it's got the Mayans, it's got everything. It is just pulling it all together. And we just have so done a disservice to our generations coming up in failing to teach them critical thinking, because critical thinking has never been needed more than it is right now. And as parents and grandparents, we must accept our responsibility, do due diligence, take those screens out of their hands for a few hours and just talk to your offspring, teach them how to reason, teach your grandkids how to think about things. And that would be my counsel in answer to your question.
Can I jump in for a second, Commander?
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, Padre, I kind of agree with some of what you're saying, but here's the thing that I'm worried about, because I've seen this as a police officer. People tend to congregate and believe something and act on those things, and that worries me about disclosure. And I'll give you an example. Let's take a look at Heaven's Gate. All right. Oh, the UFOs are coming and they're going to take us away. And 39 people committed mass suicide.
Yeah.
And we've had all kinds of stuff like that. Years ago, we had the Jones massacre. That was, I don't think it was UFO, but it was something supernatural that contended that. So people can be manipulated. People can be enticed to do things that would worry me, that if we came out and said, oh, UFOs are real, aliens are walking among us, and they're here, and we don't know what they want and stuff, you will start to get programs, or I should say cults, I guess the better word is cults, that will start forming. And what their intention is can be dangerous, because we see it. We have a past history of it. Mm-hmm. We have to be very careful about how we do disclosure. For instance, we had a person who thought after listening to UFOs, thought his neighbor was an alien because somebody, he heard somebody say, well, they look just like us and stuff in the hybrid program. And he went out with a shotgun and tried to shoot his neighbor, thinking it was a UFO. We had another man that was arrested for murder because a guy was jokingly slapping a piece of wood against a tree trying to call Bigfoot. And the guy got so scared, he shot the guy. We joke about it now, but these are actual murders.
Yeah, but Chris, so why do you get to be the arbiter about how this comes out? Because we have mentally ill people. No, hear me out. Don't go defensive. Yeah. Hear me out. You just got done saying that we can't let this come out, rip that Band-Aid clean, although you admired somebody who did rip the Band-Aid clean. We can't do it because too much of the population can't handle it.
It's how we do it.
Well, how do you decide that?
Because
you can't decide that for me. You can't decide that for anybody else. That's my point. That's what's got us in the mess that we're in.
Don't you think that if the president comes out on the White House lawn, which I think it might actually happen.
Put it out. Say it, because I'm going to give you the reaction. You've pushed my button enough on this one. Say it right now, and I'm going to give you the answer.
Okay, if he comes out and says it, do you honestly think there won't be cults where people will...
There's cults right now. If this president steps out right now and says it, one half of the country will immediately say he's lying.
Yeah.
The other half of the country will say, okay, we're with you, big guy. Tell me more. And then we're going to find out what's on TV. And we're going to go on YouTube. And we're going to go wherever else. And we're going to continue this spin along. If you think that disclosure is going to cause cults, we got cults now for everything. Yes, and I don't even want to get into any of the social disorder that we're living through right now. But it is no different if you don't go to the book that the Padre recommends, what is all over the pages of the Old Testament, all over the pages of the New Testament.
Yeah,
my point is we have convinced ourselves that somebody has to be able to dole this out or bring it out. And I call BS to all of it. BS to all of it. We went along with the pandemic. And in fact, if you ask those questions, there was kind of a cult that said, you're a bad person for asking questions. When I would make a simple one, if masks work, and I sure hope YouTube doesn't pull me down for this one, why are we letting people out of prison if they work? You said you had to let criminals out of prisons because you couldn't keep them healthy, but you're telling me the mask works. There's the critical thinking where it's not lining up. I say, if this is coming out, and we're going to jump to it obviously in the second hour, jump to it. I'm tired of somebody conditioning me on this because I don't care how well you can condition it. Agreed.
But you're rational thinking. See, Commander, you're rational.
Only to you. There are people around me who don't think my thinking is rational.
But what I'm saying is you're not the type of person, at least I truly believe this in my heart, that's going to join a UFO cult, put on a white robe, do the Hare Krishna thing, and then drink the Kool-Aid and say bottoms up. I mean,
okay,
we're going to have
I got it.
Like that. Go ahead, Padre.
I must intercede between my two brothers here for a moment. What I heard you saying, Chris, wasn't, that we've got to do this a certain way. I just heard you, as a former law enforcement officer, expressing a concern for the safety of our society when this comes out, however it comes out, that some people might go and join a cult. That's exactly what the Bible says is going to happen.
So
that, okay, there we go.
So, but Padre, if a disclosure means you double your numbers on Sunday service because a whole bunch of people think maybe I need to get right with God, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing double the numbers that show up at my church on Sunday if this was the impetus that got their tushes into the seats.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Well,
Yeah.
for a lot of people who don't like Christians, that's not such a good thing because that's a cult. So we throw words around. Chris, all I'm saying is there is no orderly way to have this message.
I agree
And
with.
if there was any chance, we blew it with what we've done the last 80 years and the deals that have gone on.
And that's why I said right in the beginning, I don't think they know how to handle this.
Then why are you allowing them to be the people that are going to arbitrate how the information comes out?
Because
you get my point?
I get your point.
I'm saying if there's truth out there, I want it to be revealed. I want it out there. I want it plainly said out here. I think we're going to be greatly disappointed.
And that's exactly why it's never going to happen.
Did any of you see? Did anyone
gatekeeper.
see? Did any of you see yesterday the interaction of Secretary of War Hegseth with reporter when she was trying to get him to reveal something about this UAP thing? He mentioned that he had been to the Vatican and that they had taken him into the archives and shown him a scroll. Because she had said, can you share with us some of the things that we might learn when this tranche of information on UAPs is revealed? And he used this as an example, that there is a scroll in the Vatican archives that is a dialogue recorded between two Roman officers, in which one Roman officer is communicating to his commanding officer about these flaming shields in the sky that were in every corner of their recent battle that they were in. And so these things go all the way back to antiquity. So, okay, good. Maybe whatever they call disclosure coming is going to give us some more interesting historical information that we can chew on for a while. But as far as it being an earth-shattering, faith-shaking sort of a thing, people who say and think that have a fundamental misunderstanding of what Christianity is.
Agreed.
And I'll leave it there.
So,
how about this?
All right, Chris.
This is a great conversation. I'm loving it. Okay, so the president comes out and says, you know what? All this UFO stuff is all in the Bible and it's all spiritual, and the devil owns this world. We have all these satanic cults. This evil stuff is going on because it is. I mean, you could look at what's going on right now, and nobody can dispute that with groups like 764 and everything else that's going on. And he comes out and says that. He says, we're going to go into the end of times and Revelations. There will be people that will try to capitalize on that, and people will get harmed.
Yes.
And what day of the week is that not happening right now?
And I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying is you're putting information out there that will increase that. It has the information.
Right.
I agree with disclosure. I want it to be in a way subtly done that we don't have more people dying stupidly, if that's a word.
I don't think you're going to get that, Chris. I really don't.
Well, you can't help but trying to think that way.
Now, you've got a great heart, but I think you've also understood humanity enough to know that we don't always rise to be the better angels of our nature, pun intended. That we have
nicely played, by the way.
Yeah,
we have.
I think this show is beat up on Chris Day. So
not
at all,
baby.
No, yeah, I share your concerns, Chris.
Hit me with your best shot.
That there are people who are going to say the Space Brothers are here, and they're going to glom over here, and there are going to be others who are. Yeah, it's a cookbook, and then there are going to be these others over here,
man,
who are let's say that it's announced that they're not from space, but they are interdimensional. Okay, all these people who've built their lives on being part of a galactic federation, the level of disappointment that they're going to feel, and disillusionment. And what in their despair are they going to do to themselves or others?
Here's the thing, Padre. I believe that we have entities coming from several locations.
Okay.
I think there's a possibility. Now, I certainly can't prove this, but in all the years of research I've done, I've come across many accounts of human beings in caves, spelunking, or just out hiking that encounter entities from beneath the earth. Now, I did a lot of thinking about that. I think the most logical explanation for that, and these people were apparently very technologically adept. They may have been the remnants of a lost, advanced human civilization that decided to go underground millennia ago when the Earth underwent tremendous Earth changes, like the Younger Dryas event. Then I think we do have extraterrestrial visitors from other star systems. Excuse my big old dog. She she thinks it's her duty to bark. And then the interdimensional thing. Now, I read with interest the email you sent out earlier in the week about how many other pastors and reverends that are convinced that this is at best, demonic, at worst, a satanic phenomenon. And you were disturbed by that, and I think rightly so. And I think that emanates from the idea of interdimensional. Now, what exactly does interdimensional mean? Now, that's something that even Beckham, in his books that I referenced earlier, touched upon. Another realm, another perhaps universe that is as close to us as a hairbreadth, but we are surrounded by bubbles, if you will, of reality. So the bottom line is, if in fact that's the thing that they're so concerned about, the interdimensional, thinking that automatically that means they're coming from hell, I can understand that. But I think they're basically, I think they're a bit off the beam. And with that, I'll shut up for your response.
Well, the response is going to have to hold because we're going to break.
Hold on to your seats, Cosmic Explorers. KGRA Digital Broadcasting, the unrivaled #1 source for raw, uncensored paranormal and UFO talk radio, has just unleashed a sizzling online merch store. Stay cosmic on the move with accessories, rugged phone cases, vibrant yoga mats, and notebooks perfect for jotting down UFO sightings. Ignite your obsession with the unexplained through bold, exclusive gear that demands attention. Kicking off with the Supernova, the store launches 2 heart-pounding collections, KGRA Digital Broadcasting and Bishop James Long. Every item you grab helps power the network and its groundbreaking shows. Stand with the truth seekers. Act fast, score your stellar swag, and join the uprising today.
MUFON is the voice of thousands of like-minded people who want to see change. We speak up against UFO secrecy. We engage governments and agencies around the world on the topic. We share information with the public through our journal, website, newsletter, social media, and even our own TV channel. When you join MUFON, you add your voice to the cause. Few things are more important in our time than understanding the UFO question. Join MUFON. Find your friends.
Welcome back to UAP Crossfire. We've had a interesting first hour, interesting discussions. Padre, do you want to take a quick stab, a light stab, please, at the demonic? Because we're going to return to it. I don't want to spend too much time on it now. Let me phrase this question to you on the tail of what Don put. Were you surprised? You seem to be surprised to me. My impression, what you were sharing with us when we were writing back and forth over the weekend, and for the audience, when I had made some remarks about former President Obama's remarks coming out, I didn't think they were completely directed right at the subject. I thought they were for some other things that were going on in the political spheres, and then day or so later, he kind of walked things back, and then the president, Trump, comes out and he says it and he's ordered it. So in that, when that came out, the Padre sent out, in his circles, where he does his smithing, there was some concern. So I'll leave it to there.
Sure. There is a part of the Christian community that is adamant that the alien beings are demons. In the Bible, demons are evil spirits. There is a belief in some circles that they are able to shapeshift and take different forms. But what was disappointing to me was this firefight that broke out between those who are adamantly convinced that these are demons and period, no backs, that's what they are. Don't waste your time with it. Do something else. Demons are best ignored. Okay. Then there were others in the Christian community who are trying to approach this with an open mind, who believe that the phenomenon is real. And I would fall into this camp that says that they cannot be simply dismissed put everything UAP and alien related into a garbage bag and throw it in the demon trash can. I don't think we can do that. I think the evidence doesn't allow us to do that.
And I might add, Padre, if you're throwing it in the demon trash can, who's taking out the trash?
Well, end of days, God will dump that into the lake of fire, and that'll be that. But anyway, well,
let me just break in here very quickly. Back in the very early days of my involvement with UFO Magazine, as you might imagine, created somewhat of a firestorm in fundamentalist Christian doctrines. And Vicky was invited to appear on one of these television broadcasts. And she basically laid out what they were trying to do with the magazine. This was a genuine phenomenon. It was something that, if you believe your own Bible, was around for many millennia. People have been reporting these things in the sky. So she laid out her spiel, and then this guy who was very polite and smiling, came back, and then he tried to ambush her. And this was at the very end of the program. And she stopped him. She said, well, you know what? Do you know what our Lord Jesus Christ said? And the guy looked at her like he couldn't believe she was quoting scripture. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. And it shut and if it were not true, I would tell you so, or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And the guy was shut down, and then the show was over. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by this, Padre, not at all.
Well, then there's another way to look at this. And I did a long post on X, putting myself between two parties. And you understand when you do that, you get shot at by both normally. But in this case, it was very well received. And what I basically said is we need to have an open enough mind to distinguish between what is a demon and what is demonic. Demonic is anyone or anything, this is my definition, who is doing the work of demons, whether it knows it or not. Biblically, what is the intention of demons? To destroy humans, to hurt humans, to irritate and frustrate humans, to keep humans ultimately from developing a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. That is their mission. And to the extent that any person, place, or thing is doing those things, one could legitimately say they are demonic. So I do not have a problem saying, because, and we've talked about this, the four of us, none of us believes that these entities are here for the benefit of mankind. We all believe to some extent or another they're nefarious, that they do not mean us good. And if we hold that belief, that would align their purposes with that of demons, and one could, by definition, consider them demonic. And I don't have a problem with that label in that context. And once people were able to at least online, kind of see that, they're like, huh. And at least they're thinking, and it seemed that the flamethrowers directed at each other were at least extinguished for the moment. But that was the nature of that discussion.
Well, I would be adamant about asking these people that if you truly believe in God, the God that created the entire universe, would he limit himself to one tiny planet in a solar system, the outside of the Milky Way galaxy, and not spread life throughout the entire universe? You don't accept that. And this is how I would respond to those people. They're limiting the God they seem to want to worship and deny things in front of their very own eyes. Now, I'm not saying that I think if there are extraterrestrials here, and I adamantly believe there is, I'm not trying to say that I believe that they're all nefarious. God only knows what operations and missions they are on.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. What if, and this is a scary thought for many of those people, what if the human race, and there is some substance to this thought, what if the human race was a created race by some of these extraterrestrials? And Zecharia Sitchin, who wrote the Earth Chronicles series on ancient Samaria, the Anunnaki, he was the guy that brought it to the public for the first time. The guy was a friend of mine. We had many discussions about this. And he was firmly convinced the Anunnaki came to Earth from a planet, and I don't know if I agreed with this, but a planet currently in our solar system. But they were having some bad environmental problems on their planet, and they came to Earth looking for minerals and other things to help stabilize their economic disaster. And after a while, their workers that they brought with them, called the Ajiji, became absolutely demoralized, and they basically went on strike. And the Anunnaki knew they had to get other workers. They took an early proto hominid here from planet Earth, mixed their DNA with it, and ended up ultimately creating the human race, the Adam, the first one. But when they created them, they were created originally to be a slave race. Okay? That's a heavy load to take on. But there is a lot of circumstantial evidence to say that our genomes have been tinkered with. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, but I think it's entirely possible.
I got a question. Why did they leave? If they were getting minerals here, if they
Who said they did?
Well,
according to Sitchin, I think they're in close proximity. According to Sitchin, they first came to Earth roughly 420,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, do you know that and one of the primary elements they were searching for was gold? Do you know that in South Africa, a gold mine was discovered that was dated back over 300,000 years ago? Now, even if Homo sapiens were around then, who would want to mine gold? It's too soft. You can't make tools with it. You can't make weapons with it. Okay, it's so soft it'll bend or break. So who in the hell was mining gold 300,000 years ago? This is just one of those things that make you go, wow, okay, what was that all about? So.
Yeah, but why would you leave? I mean, you got a slave race. You're mining. There's still gold and every other mineral here. Why would you leave?
I can't begin to answer that, Chris. I have
no
idea.
I'm going to let Padre, because I want to drag this back a little bit more, back to a couple of things we opened the show with. Anything you want to jump in there, Padre?
Sure. The Bible explains exactly what Don was saying. It says that the sons of God, there's a race of beings called the sons of God, not the Son of God, Jesus, he's different, looked upon the daughters of men, desired them, and impregnated them. That's genetic tinkering. But that was after the creation of the human race. But there's no question that there's been genetic tinkering. And Sitchin's has to be called out as incorrect because yesterday it was revealed that archaeologists digging have found in a layer of sediment 600,000 years old stone tools that predate the arrival of the Anunnaki in his book. So maybe he was, let's say maybe he was off by a couple 100,000 years.
But we had early hominid ancestors.
Done. Let's save this for a show because I want to get back to the meat of what we're talking about. This is what I want to pose to all of you on this.
Okay.
This is called UAP Crossfire, right?
That's correct. And you just took some fire. If you don't know what that is, dust off the memory chips. You're taking some incoming from me.
Why can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
Oh, please.
Can't we all be friends?
I so badly want to tell you, put on a robe and shave your head, but you're a buddy of mine, so I'm not going to say that. Okay?
Hare Krishna.
I don't want to.
And for all the Hare Krishnas out there, that wasn't directed at you. At least not from me. Okay. Here we are.
You want to buy this poppy?
We have former president come out and make a statement. We have our current president make a statement. We have follow-on glad handing and everybody jumping on board. Members of Congress. And when we say Congress on this show, and I have the helm, It's Congress. It's not the House of Congress. It's not congressmen. Congress is the Senate and the House of Representatives. That's what they are. Everybody that's in that building is a congressperson of some kind. Some are senators, some are reps. Small thing. It's like when they tell me it's the Congressional Medal of Honor. No, it's not. It's the Medal of Honor. It is not the Congressional. The name of it is the Medal of Honor. All that are over on the side. We've had them come out. We've had Congress come out and talk about, look at the great job that we did. Reminds me of that little Jack sitting in the corner pulling out the Christmas plum with his thumb. Look at us. Look at us. We've done this. Two things I want to put around the table with you gentlemen tonight. Number one, I am convinced that much of this is orchestrated. That there is a lot of things that are going on in the political sphere that generated the initial messages to come out. If you really study carefully what was said by former President Obama, I think he got very close to getting into some very troubled waters because he made remarks concerning the disposition of Area 51 and conditions there. But he laid the case. They didn't tell me. And that's what's coming up. If you read the press, if you read the other pieces that are out there, not the press, but the media that we're on, there's a lot that's come out that says, well, President Trump really can't release the information because he's never been briefed, which goes back to what Don has talked about consistently. It was part of his paper that by not having the president actually cut in on that information, there is the ability to say, well, I'm not responsible for that piece of it. And you notice that's how that kind of played out. But two things are coming to mind for me. This is what I want you to answer. Is this rocking, quote unquote, the deep state, the people that are running the gatekeeping and the SAPs on this? Is this rocking them, or is this something that they are triggering from behind the scenes to get all these people in very public places while we're on the edge of a war with Iran, while we have Ukraine still going on, while we're watching the PRC crumble economically, and they are getting more concerned that they're going to have not have unfettered access to oil? Is this actually going after the citadel that the deep state lives in, or are they shooting out the fire arrows from that citadel and causing this situation to go on? Because I bring this up, the next thing we're going to turn to is Mirage Men. And I think Mirage Men is a perfect example of people that were basically tools to go out there and cause this kind of discontent, disinformation. Chris, I'll start with you.
Well, I don't know if it's coming from the deep state or what it is. One of the questions that I have in my mind is, why would Obama come out and say what he did? And what was so grievous that what
my
he
hand
said,
is up. If you want to call on me, I can give you the reason.
Okay, well, let me finish my sentence, and then you can attack me all you want. I go, the one thing is, what did he say that was so egregious? Now, I'm not an Obama fan. I think everybody knows that. But what was so egregious? I mean, S4, everybody has heard about S4, if it's real, not real. Some people say it is. Some people don't say it is. He basically said, I don't believe there's S4. He says aliens are real. Then he walks it back. And then Trump says, he was giving out classified information. I'm going to save him from it. Now, he's not saying anything different than what we're saying. Yes, it's coming from the president of the United States. And I think because it came from him, people are taking it a lot more serious than if Chris DePerno said it. But I just kind of looking at this saying, this is, in my belief, this is a deflection. This is a deflection from some other stuff that is about to come out. And if we look at the UFO and the alien thing, we're not going to look. I was always taught, if you come out with the right hand, you better start looking what the left hand is holding. And that's what I think it is. This is a deflection.
that very point, Chris, was what was going on my other social media feeds, because I had shared President Trump's remarks. Half of my friends said this is solely to distract from the Epstein files. They're just obsessed with the Epstein files.
But Padre, they're not wrong. What preceded that with President Obama is that his legal counsel from the White House was implicated in that last data drop. We have had 5 or 6 major European people arrested because of the files. I'm not getting into the files and the absolute criminal behavior of that piece of excrement. And may he burn in hell for all eternity. I will go that far. Not very Christian of me, but don't have a lot of measure for him in this particular case. But I want anybody to explain to me all this time out of office, all this time in front of cameras, all this time at Netflix. This is how you choose to bring out this little tidbit of information? Within 24 hours of your legal counsel being implicated up to her neck in Epstein's situation. An Epstein situation is pedophilia at its worst. Got it. But there is intelligence leaks now that are all over the place that is rocking the world. Inside information from Britain, probably from the United States, things that were shared by these people, and monies that went back and forth. You're correct. This is partially a diversion. But now I ask you, is it a diversion because you knew it was always there? The glass case, the little silver hammer, in case when it really gets close to burning your backside, break the glass, hit the button, and let disclosure start coming up, because it'll take the masses' eyes off what we did. That's the point I'm trying to throw out to you on that. Do you think that's a possibility? Why did I say consistently that disclosure would come under Trump? And I was convinced it was going to happen in his first term. He's not an insider. And he is astute when it comes to when he wants to get something, he'll use every tool he has to get it. I'm not convinced he completely believes all this is going on. And he's going to say, here it is. You look at it, you decide. I'm trying to figure out how to keep Iran from getting nuclear capability and obliterating the Middle East. That's all I think he's looking at it.
Then why would he even enter? Why would he enter the discussion?
President Obama made further remarks discussing Area 51. I'm not going to go any further than that because I hold a clearance and it actively puts food on my table. There were remarks that he made in there that were incompatible with what he should have said. He chose his words poorly. And he made remarks there that should not have been made.
Think it was done on purpose?
Very likely.
Do you think he was baiting President Trump
I think
to respond?
I was a lifeguard for a very short time in my life. And they always taught you that when you approach somebody who's flailing in the water, hit them if you want to save them and bring them to the beach. Because they're going to pull you under in that state. My guess is we have a little panic going on. There's a lot of things unraveling. A lot of things unraveling.
I agree with that. Like I said before, if they show you the right hand, you better watch what the left hand is doing, because that's where the action is. But also, on the same token, is the thing that got me very interested in what Trump said was not from Trump, but what his daughter-in-law said on Fox News, what his son has said in the past. You know, his daughter-in-law didn't mince meat. She said right there, my father-in-law, the president of the United States, has a speech prepared for this. It says it right there. Right, they cut to the White House and start talking about, yes, it's been confirmed that he has a speech on this. So now you have that. Then you have Donald Trump Jr. that goes on his own podcast and absolutely talks about that is insisting that his father should come out with the information, that he's talked to his father about it, and that why are we not releasing the information? So when that type of information comes out using his immediate family, that kind of makes me wonder. What do you think, Commander?
I think it's a pretty standard strategy that you have your various spokespeople that you know socialize. I think is the word they used to use these kinds of things coming out. It's no different than when you have former members of Congress or people from entertainment that come out. I met with the president. We talked about this, and they say something that comes out. So no, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that speeches are prepared. We used to have in training manuals at the Air Force Academy. They used to have a section where they talked about what to do if extraterrestrials landed at your base. I think they removed it out of there in the 80s or the 90s, but it was actually in like a standing orders kind of capability. None of this surprises me. None of this surprises me at all. Do I think that the horse is out of the barn? Do I think that maybe the horse and the cart are running through town and everyone's trying to figure out how they're going to get on the proper side of this? Yep, I think there's a lot of that going on. But I think when you get down to the nut of this, and Don, I'm coming to you next. You have had the forces of good v. evil at play on this particular subject since at least Roswell, if not before. But definitely since World War II at this point. And this repeated mantra that people can't handle it and that we can't go through it. Well, I can't imagine where we could be in any worse situation than we are right now. And if this is supposedly the thing that's going to light the final thing off, I just can't buy that. We can't have a snowstorm without giving it a name now, and it's Armageddon every time the white stuff falls from the skies. I mean, we are in a very troubled state as a country, as a culture, as a nation, as a world. So to me, holding this back, you're going to have to pay the price for if the word ever comes out why we were lied to for all this time, for our own good. Great. Based on who? Whose decision was that? The difference that I will say on this, though, on the final part, I am much more comfortable with this particular president making the remarks because he doesn't seem to have a lot of friends on either side of this array. So he's not doing it to make friends. He's doing it because he sees this is the way that's going to get us to the next great spot. That's just how I'm looking at it. Don, straighten me out.
Well, I agree with much of what you just said. I think back a few years, earlier in the last decade, there was a program on the History Channel called Unidentified. This is where we first were exposed to Christopher Mellon, Hal Puthoff, Luis Elizondo, the guy from Lockheed, Tom DeLonge, okay? And it was basically geared towards saying, hey, there really is something with the UFO topic. Now, Elizondo, we all know what he claimed his background was in the Pentagon, part of the ATIP program started by Harry Reid or financed by Reid. And we know who Christopher Mellon was. We know who the engineer was in the Lockheed Skunk Works, basically what they did. But every episode, and I watched them all, it ran for a couple of seasons. At the end of the show, they made a habit of saying or implicating, if you will, that there is something we believe coming down the road it could be very, and I'm paraphrasing, but it could be very bad, could be a real security threat. We don't know at this point what it is. Now we're on to the next episode. Okay. I was kind of shocked by that show when I first saw it, and I didn't know who any of these players were. Then, okay, let's come forward a few years. Here we are again. Trump was, I think, very prescient about the remarks that Obama made. A lot of people may not realize that, hey, Obama did breach that line between classified and unclassified. And you're right, I think, Deuce, I think you're right that Obama may have done that intentionally. But Trump, and I just said this in a recent Facebook post I put up, when Trump first came out with his remarks about he's going to declassify UFOs. The thing about Trump is he's not a swamp creature. He's also not a gelding. He's a stallion. And when you get in his face, you can depend on it. Like God's making the sun come up in the morning, he'll get right back in yours. And I think there's a part of him that may simply want to do this out of spite. I wouldn't put it past him. But then there's the other thing. And what's the other thing? The legacy program. They are bound and determined to keep this under wraps at practically any cost. Earlier in the show, Chris DePerno said that Burchett right now, the congressman, the representative, is getting a lot of pushback. He's been very vocal on getting this information to the public. And you said what, Chris? That there are people that are financing his opponents, trying to run him off the ticket.
Primary him and the intelligence. He publicly came out and said, hey, listen, I wanted to put this out here, and the intelligence agencies, slapped me down, pretty much. I mean,
now, is anybody,
but that's what he was saying.
Is anybody surprised by that? Look at what they did to David Grush several years ago when he testified before Congress. Now, he had his superior's permission to go to Congress and testify. And he was very careful about how he portrayed himself as opposed to what he was told. And what he was told came out to be what? Second, even third-hand information. But then what happened to Grush? His medical records were released showing that he, for example, at one point or another, sought counseling from a psychiatrist, that he was on the spectrum of autism. They did this to embarrass the guy, and not only embarrass him, but to basically destroy his military career and his reputation. Oh, yeah, the legacy people are alive and well. Who are they? They're the Central Intelligence Agency. They're the Department of Energy. They're the National Security Agency. They are government contractors, people like Lockheed, McDonnell Douglas, other aviation. And why would they be involved? Well, if in fact Grush was being honest and telling everything he knew he could tell, we've got a dozen or more crashed vehicles that he claimed were identified as off-world. And where would they be sent? They would be sent to people that could attempt to back engineer them. And they would go to these aviation corporations. Now, even Rubio talked about that in the age of disclosure. He's aware of so much, but what happens when he leaves? Another guy comes in. Is he going to be briefed that the XYZ Aviation Corporation has recovered ET craft? They're working on it? No. Ultimately, if they can crack the technology down the road, they're going to be able to claim it as their own. Nobody in the government is going to be able to jump out and grab it back from them. So we're talking about untold, potentially, billions and billions of dollars. So, Commander Cobra, bottom line is, buddy, we've been sold the pig in a poke.
Pig in a poke.
Dan?
You know, I recently did an inquiry into Grok and Chat GPT, and I said cross-reference significant UAP, UFO related disclosures over the last couple of decades and any political scandals or turmoil or peril that anyone was facing at that time. Came up with some interesting things. For instance, let me just run a few of these. The 2017 release in the New York Times. Okay, that was released at a time when the Russia Gate and Robert Mueller investigation were just all over the news at that point. In April 18th, 2019, there was a slow buildup. The Navy acknowledged the authenticity of leaked videos that we all saw. And again, that was the whole Mueller report was dominating the headlines. In April 27, 2020, on the UFO disclosure beat, the Pentagon released those 3 FLIR, gimbal, and go fast videos. And that was the peak of COVID with that whole thing going on. June 25th, 2021, ODNI released a preliminary assessment to Congress on UAP and UFOs, and that was, the January 6th political crisis was blowing up in the news then as they were investigating the people who were arrested and just, that whole thing. Then in 2022, on May 17th, the first public congressional hearing on UAPs was held. Midterm elections were tight. Multiple concurrent national controversies were going on. And then in July 26th, on the UFO disclosure beat, you had Grush, Graves, and Fravor appear at a time when there was, again, all of this political turmoil that was going on in what would have been the Biden administration. And in 2024, on March 8th, the Aero Historical Record Volume 1 was released that said it found no evidence of hidden alien tech programs. And that was right when the election fervor of a recent election was. And then more recently, February 20th of this year, President Trump directs agencies to identify and release files related to extraterrestrial life. And of course, we've got the Epstein thing going on, as well as Iran, potential war there, and tensions with Taiwan. Now, this is all circumstantial, and I think we could argue to a certain point it was unsuccessful in steering the mainstream media in a direction they wanted it to go. But there is a correlation there of these being released at a time when there were, if you don't believe in the significant potential impacts for humanity being visited by others from different dimensions or other planets, that would be, you'd think it would be front page news. I mean, gentlemen, the President of the United States has just ordered a release of government files pertaining to this issue that have been sequestered for years. Find me any follow-up story today on any website front page dealing with news that even raises anything about that.
The battlefield has been prepped. We have had what you just went through is repeated exposures and releases. We had the Senate Majority Leader, when he was Senate Majority Leader, come out talking about how he was going to go after all the corporations that Don was talking about, that they could not make profit if they had recovered, that they had to reveal it. Now the Minority Leader, I haven't heard a peep out of the gentleman since these two a former president and the present president makes these remarks. Nary a peep. I waited for Sunday night. I never listened to anything Senator Schumer has to say. But I wanted to know what he was going to say Sunday night when he did his press conference. Nothing. No remark on this. So we've prepped this. We've gone through this a bunch of times. And to me, it has to be a controlled situation that there isn't any reaction to this. Are they running internal polls that say that the popularity of President Trump goes up because he's doing this? Then they're not going to. If the polls say this is going to drag him down, then they're going to play the stories on it. That's the world we're living in, and that's why I say, release the hounds. Let it all come out. I am tired of playing the game.
In the last 48 hours, Laura Trump, his daughter, was on a program, and she said that she has talked to her father about this and that there is a speech written to give to the American people about this. So, she didn't share anything beyond that.
Time.
Right.
When's the right time?
Well, that depends on what.
I mean, it's been 80 years. When's the right time?
Yeah, but look at everything that's going on right now. Actively, they're talking about the potential of an Iran strike, God forbid. They're talking about Ukraine and this Russia. I almost said Soviet Union. I'm going to slap myself.
Word.
Kind of hard to tell the difference some days, Don. So I'll give you that one.
Yeah. And now, and we barely mentioned it tonight, what is happening in Mexico. Now, look, I've been following it at first, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the program. When Chris called me up, I immediately started looking everywhere, for information on this. And it seemed like there was an embargo. Finally, I got some. But then I started thinking, my God, we in California, San Diego, were right next door to that.
Right.
And of course, that was one of the main gateways before Trump tightened up the border, where so many illegal drugs were being flushed into California. And I'm talking about by the ton, And I thought, oh my God, that violence could spill over in here. Did you see what Governor Abbott did in Texas?
Yep.
He secured his border. He sent everybody from the Texas Rangers to God knows who down there to make sure none of this spills into Texas. Now, the guy we have running California, other than just releasing from prison one of the most vile, disgusting pedophiles you could ever imagine. He just let this guy out of, I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but he just let him out of jail. For humanitarian reasons. The guy's in his early 60s. Is he still a threat? Hell yes. But we've got close to 3,000 pedophiles right now running the streets in California from people that this administration in California have turned loose. It's horrifying. So if there's a danger of any of this violence from Mexico coming into California, I doubt that our Governor Gavin Newsom, I doubt that he's done a damn thing to secure the border. That would be contrary to everything this guy apparently stands for. So yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on the prize with that one, pal.
So we're approaching the end of this second hour. I want to tease Mirage Men because I really think that should be in a future show. I think it should be dedicated. Don sent us a reminder to this. I remember seeing it a while back. When I saw it, I have maintained forever that whatever is going on with UAP/UFO, there are enterprising people that say this is a handy way to cover up other things that we're doing. And I think that we've touched upon that repeatedly tonight with the overall disclosure process that seems to be at hand. My hopes are high, but I'm not putting a lot of money on the table. So here's what I'm thinking about on the Mirage Men. You have a well-documented situation case of people that came out and said the whole thing that we did with purporting UFOs was to cover military activities. I think that has standing. I think that is not uncommon. I remember parts of things that were revealed during Blue Book, where they were sending people into conventions and trying to get those kinds of things worked up. So let
me just really quickly let me break in there. Let us not forget what happened to me in January of 1995 when I was invited down to Disney World in Orlando, Florida, to put on a 2-week UFO program that ended up Disney never gave 1 cent's worth of promotion. I brought in some of the top researchers in the entire United States to give lectures in there and talk about their research. And guess what? The most heavily attended day was like 12 people. And I'm guessing 10 of them were military intelligence operatives. Now, in 1995, in January, the internet was nowhere to be found, so to speak. So how would the government find out what everybody was doing in the UFO field if they couldn't go online and get it? Well, let's bring them all together. We've got to do at least an hour or so on that, Deuce.
I agree. No disagreement. But my point is, as we take it around real quickly here, as we come towards our end of the show, do you think that this is not a possibility that, believe it or not believe it, that the government would not use UAP and UFO interest as a deception tool? I think they would.
Of course they would.
Dan?
They do it all the time. They're doing it right now.
Not only do I think they would do it, biblically, they will.
Well said.
Very well said. It's right there. The script has been written, my friends, and we are following it to the letter.
Chris?
I agree with him. I'll make it short. Absolutely.
So there's some real key characters in there. Chris is able to pull up Mr. Baglia. Hopefully I'm saying Baglio's website.
I will try. So
in prepping for the show, and I sent it out to the hosts, like I said, we can't do justice in 10 minutes. The Mirage Men, but I am going to have Don take us through what the Mirage Men were. But I tell you to look up UFO Explorations. That's the name of the website, and he has a really, really good website. he and Don are cut from the same cloth. Just absolutely no suppers, no fools on this, and he puts it pretty straight up. Mirage Men is what we're going to talk about, hopefully in the future show coming up. But Decker, give us a short takedown of the key topics and people that are in Mirage Men.
Well, I've got the book, which came out in 2010 first. Then this documentary, Mirage Men, came out in 2013. Now, practically everybody in that broadcast I knew to one degree or another. People like Greg Bishop, people like Walter Bosley, Doty, of course, and a slew of others. But here's the thing. They geared this at the beginning of this documentary with the campaign that the Air Force OSI, Office of Scientific
Special Investigations,
Special Investigations, mounted against a civilian scientist by the name of Paul Benowitz that literally drove this man into a psychiatric hospital. A couple of the people primarily that were responsible for that was one of the guys, and I knew this guy very well, William Moore. You've heard me mention that name before. William Moore, Bill Moore, the guy that wrote the original book, The Roswell Incident, that was published back in 1980, and how that happened with him. And Doty, who was at the time an investigator with OSI. Now, Doty, this is a guy, his footprints are all over this campaign of disinformation. And in this documentary, he comes out because he's out of the Air Force. As a matter of fact, before he retired from the Air Force, he was removed from OSI. And he ended up his Air Force career in the food service element of the Air Force. So something, and I've never been able to find out what he did that got him tossed, but the guy is an arrogant guy. He's a totally accomplished liar. He's got charisma that he knew how to use to rope people in. He used it on Bill Moore. Bill Moore, who at the time was a quote-unquote celebrity UFO investigator and author, okay, ended up blowing his cover by publicly announcing in July of 1989 at the MUFON Symposium, at that time held in Las Vegas. And by the way, Vicki and I were there. I saw it in real time. Admitted working hand in glove with military intelligence, admitting he disinformed Paul Benowitz. Now, Benowitz was still alive then. He's gone now. But I briefly had several conversations with Paul Benowitz, and I could tell the man was destroyed. And I tried to follow up on this because it was a well-known thing what they did to him, and I could never get any law enforcement agency interested in pursuing this. At the very most, they should have sued the government for multi-millions and millions of dollars because of what they did. Hey, it was illegal. You can't have a military intelligence organization go after an American civilian and drive him into a freaking psychiatric hospital. So, yeah, this is something that, watching this, Commander Cobra and Padre, this is an exercise in true government horror.
So I put out to the audience, if you haven't seen Mirage Men or you haven't seen it recently, grab it. It's a little bit over an hour, isn't it? About an hour and a half? Not that long.
Roughly an hour and roughly an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's about a 1.5er. And to take a look at it, pump us with some questions and remarks, and hopefully in the next coming weeks we'll put a show together on that. I found it really distasteful, since I spent most of my adult life in uniform or supporting those in uniform, but I'm not a Pollyanna to think that these things don't happen. I mean, deception is something that we teach as a military, as a warfare skill, to deny the enemy clear understanding of what's going on. That's simple. Too tempting, but to do it to citizens is remarkable. And quite honestly, what I never understood with this, what information he had that made him such a desirable or designated target to cause the kind of distress that they did with him to do that. He wasn't making any kind of classified breakthrough. He just wasn't putting stuff out there that on the face of it, he didn't have things that he was presenting. And then I start to wonder, was this just because he was an interesting case to run to see how well this would work if he could do it? Or as you said, Don, it was just sadistic.
No, he stumbled into a highly classified program that probably was an Air Force and NSA project.
But if it's not UFO connected, if it wasn't extraterrestrial connected, I still don't understand the level when you can be arrested. The military can arrest civilians when they go into areas they're not supposed to be in, or if they break security protocols.
No, he did it from the rooftop of his house, which was right across a desert highway from the airbase.
Right.
And he had observed these highly classified tests from his home. He took pictures of it, and he was convinced they were unidentified flying objects.
I just still find that claim is made. Pictures are shown all the time. To me, there's more. We'll have to discuss it more when we do a more dedicated piece in the show. Chris is back with us. Our own Mirage man there for a second, out and back in.
Did you beat me up?
No.
I don't know. I got half my ass gone from you guys. I thought maybe you want to get it.
Not from me, pal. I wasn't involved.
Oh, I saw you cheering them on, though, Decker. Come on.
Well, folks, we're at the end of our show. Again, I thank you for the greatest audience and the dedication that the audience has. Love the engagement. Thank you for participating in all the various places each week. Amanda continues to strengthen how the show is broadcasted, presented, is available, and she works really, really hard. You can always put a kind word to her at uapcrossfire@gmail.com. She reads those emails as well. I'm going to have closing thoughts. Chris, as we're going out the door.
I hope, I really, truly hope that they come out with this, but I hope it does not cause problems. And that's my biggest concern, because I've seen it happen before throughout history, where certain things come out and people just take advantage of it, take advantage of other people, and ultimately a lot of people die.
It's a very good point, Chris. I don't mean to make light of it, but it's a very good point. Dan?
I'm excited. Even if it's not disclosure as we envision it, if these files that are coming have a whole bunch of historical data that goes all the way back to the Roman Empire or maybe earlier, boy, I'm looking forward to reading it. That'll be fun.
Decker?
Well, quite frankly, I'm just going to make sure my powder stays dry, and I'm going to keep my eyes on the prize.
Well said. I've said this consistently. I don't need disclosure to confirm what I know, and I will always leave it at that. Would I like to see a reckoning? Yeah, there's part of me that would like to see a reckoning, because our republic is going to be weakened if we don't get this clear, if we don't clear this up. We see this with every scandal. We see this with everything that's gone wrong. When you cover it up, when you do this, as Chris said, there's too many manipulative forces that take it and cause that. And like Chris states, I worry about this populace. We're down to 30-second TikTok videos is the way that we interact. No one talks to anybody anymore. No one reads anymore. What is a book is becoming an issue. And after seeing everything that has gone through the pandemic, every major political thing that we talked about tonight, not from the stance of where you fall on that, but just the theater of what's going on, this bread and circuses kind of situation we have going on. It really worries me that you're correct, Chris. The populace is not well equipped, as Dan said, with those skills to reason things through, to ask the questions. And if you do ask the questions, the mob comes and gets you if it's not the right question to ask. And we've got to get past that. Is this the great unifying event? We didn't even touch upon that tonight. It was in my notes where, the Von Braun, there's going to be a false flag event. Is that what we're driving to? Is this the whole thing? Well, we'll pick that up in future shows, but I think that bears considerable attention, because I think the beast, and I don't use that word lightly, what is this deep state, is on the run here a little bit, and I think there's going to be some thrashing before it's all said and done.
I just want to say one thing, that when the aliens do come down and do present themselves, with the way the culture is right now, they're probably going to ask, are you woke or conservative? Bottom line. That's how our system is right now.
Which one do they eat?
Yeah. What do you eat? Red or blue?
I don't know. I've seen some of these people in the streets who look mighty tender.
Yeah, the allusion back to the Twilight Zone, when they decoded the book, when the aliens came and they made everybody happy and there was no more wars, to serve man. They got the title of it, and then of course, well, I won't spoil it. You can find it here on YouTube with all the others, but look up the To Serve Man episode. You might get illusion. God's peace that surpasses all knowledge and understanding. And believe me, I say that with a lot of emphasis on these topics and these shows. Love you, gentlemen. It's been great working with you these last few weeks, getting things back on. And I'd like to say that the Disclosure movie trilogy has finally come to a close on this show tonight. Drop us your emails. Keep in touch with us. And we'll see you soon.
Good night.
Good night.